Sorry.
Opens meeting. Meeting's
Thank
open.
you. I did not hear that, sorry.
No, you did. I didn't really formally do, but I'll call a meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Tonight we'll be just discussing budget, round two, as Michelle just said, as we try to close the gap. We had a $75,000 gap in last meeting, and so I talked to Michelle for quite a while. I forget what day. Was it Monday? I don't know when I talked to you. Anyway, we came up with some ideas, and so here we are, and Michelle has closed the gap. So I'll give the floor over to you, Michelle.
Okay, so I sent out a Word document outlining some of the changes that I discussed with Mayor and things that I did to close the gap. So right now, the general fund is a balanced budget, but that doesn't mean that we can't still discuss things that are in it. It's just, it needed to be balanced by the 20th to meet the state deadline of a official tentative, and it is for right now. So last meeting, we had talked about a lot of changes to the salaries. So after I put them all in, it raised the gap a little bit. But some of the hypothetical positions, not hypothetical, positions that aren't filled yet, we made some adjustments to those, and that significantly reduced some of the spending. For example, we had talked about on the high end, a mechanic of 20 hours a week, but I cut it down to 12, and that saved us $13,000 right there.
Wow. And 12 hours we didn't have before, so we're still up.
And that's at $30 an hour for an experienced mechanic, and that's why it's so much of a change. For summer help, I had in the past we had 2 guys, or we had 1 guy that was there or 1 person for an extended period of time. So with the addition of the CDL driver and now a mechanic, we reduced the summer help to 1 person, 40 hours a week for 13 weeks, which is pretty much the full summer, not extended before or after. That saved $7,200. So this includes salary and FICA. And then the CDL driver, we had bumped it up from 19 to 24. I dropped that down to 23. That's another $900 there.
So the summer help, we would still take 1 person on for the whole summer, but not 2 people.
Is it reasonable to get a mechanic for 12 hours a week? Do you think anybody would take that job?
Mayor?
Oh, well, I just think I think the same question could be raised about someone for 20 hours or anything for a short amount of time, 2 days. And looking at what we need them for and the kind of work we're needing them for, and now that we're getting a lot of new vehicles, I don't see why we need someone for as long as we were discussing. I mean,
so would it be?
But that was not the question. The question was, do we think we can attract anyone if we're offering only 12 hours a week?
Only one way to find out.
Yep.
And we go up as high as saying 2 days a week, or which would be like 16 hours or whatever. I don't know if that sounds better. It's not that much better, but
Well, it at least gives a sense of predictability. I don't know what happens in a week if there's nothing to repair and we have someone on for 12 or 16 hours. Does that person roll into other work or not come in? I mean, is it something where we commit? It's a by the hour pay. So if I only come in for 7 hours this week, I only get paid for 7 hours this week, as opposed to I've been hired for 16-hour a week wage or 12-hour a week wage.
I think it could be up to. I mean, I think we've done that in the past. If the hour, I think that's how we do it with Charlotte. If she doesn't use all of her hours that we've allotted for her, I don't believe. I don't know what a mechanic will be doing for these other times. For if he changes all the oil, or our guy's done that and stuff, a lot of stuff he's not going to be able to do because of the modern mechanics and need for equipment that we don't have. Like as far as all the electronic stuff, which seems to go wrong all the time. I think one of the big bonuses with mechanic is we'd have somebody there to, if something breaks down. But like I said, now we have you know, we don't have to worry about, we'll have once the dump truck or the garbage truck comes in, and once we get a dump truck, we'll have replacements, so there won't be such an urgency. I don't know. The mechanic thing's a tough one. I don't know if we will attract anyone, to answer your question. I don't know if we'll attract them for 16 or 20, or what would be an attractive number besides full time.
Well, it might be a job that somebody who's retired and wanting to pick up extra hours might, I mean, it might appeal to somebody like that. I'm just wondering if there's any way to try to, if we have someone on who has a skill set, a sort of a range of skills, and we don't have mechanical work to do, could they be doing other kinds of work in the department to reach the 12 hours? Would that be helpful to have that person available for other work if not needed as mechanic? I don't even know if that's possible.
I don't know what else he would do at $30 an hour. Do you want him on the garbage truck, or is somebody that's a mechanic? I don't think is going to be interested. I don't know what else we could offer him. Jeff had one idea when we were talking about maybe contacting like the owner of Thrift King and asking, they're not open on Saturdays. Maybe one of their guys would be interested to be on call, or someone like, you know, maybe not just Thrift King, but, you know, maybe an auto place that's not open on Saturday, and see if anybody would be interested in, you know, coming in on weekend on a Saturday. I think that would be worth making that phone call.
And is it more that you need, my impression from when we've needed mechanics over the last year has been that, you know, it's something breaks and we urgently need somebody, as opposed to someone coming in on a Saturday for regular maintenance. Do you envision it as someone who needs to be available on a Wednesday afternoon because a chain broke?
I don't think so. Or I think this would, you know, if we knew someone was going to be there Saturday, it's something he could do, and Bugsy would have to determine that. Don't know.
I mean, it's worth a shot, it seems, to try to find someone to take the hours. I think Fran makes a good point about whether it's 12 hours or 2 days, 12 or 16.
Yeah, we just, I mean, we'll put it in as a budget item and see how, you know, if we can't get somebody, then we have cash in the budget to push in another direction.
So to up it an extra 4 hours would be an extra $6,700.
Let's leave it at 12. I mean,
Okay.
I'm up to,
The one thing is we might have to advertise somewhere besides the Putnam County News.
Yes, please.
Yeah,
Or the local
well,
papers.
not local papers, right? You've got to go outside.
It just go, then it gets $700 to advertise in the journal news.
Yeah,
You may affect news, or sorry, Marie.
Peekskill,
Peekskill.
Westchester, and Dutchess, it would seem to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we've done in the past, and really the online, that's how we got Donald, that's how we got Corey.
Yeah.
Was through their online versions, but again, you know, it's not cheap.
No,
And we are talking a part-time position, so, you know, do we want to make that investment for a part-time position?
well, if we think that a mechanic is going to save us money in the long run, then spending the money up front seems to me a reasonable investment.
Can we put 2 postings in one, a part-time driver and a part-time mechanic, as 2 separate in one ad, or does it not work like that?
I'll have to check with them. We'll check with the Journal News and see.
Okay.
Should be able, I would think we could definitely.
I think I've seen such ads, but that may only have been in the local papers.
That's how we place it in the PCNR and the current.
Another position I'd like to bring up, Nico is currently at 15 and we're proposing 16. It struck me that Nico's work is all weekends or holidays. And I don't think we took that into account when we established his base pay a few years ago. And it wasn't in my thinking when we increased his base pay this salary round. So I'd like to put it out there. Should we consider something even more for Nico, with the understanding that his work is Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays?
and almost the most valuable staff member we have in terms of the work he's doing, to help with parking on the weekends when it's busy.
If we upped him, Michelle, how badly would we get hit?
That I'm working on right now. So he only works, he's seasonal on the weekends. So I have 28 weekends, 12 hours. So what are we thinking of upping him to?
What did we just up him? What was the increase?
From 15 to 16.
Right.
And I was thinking 17 and a half to 18. Sorry, 16 to 17. So he would get an increase from $15 now to $17 in the future.
So an extra $1 for him, it's
Yeah.
$340.
I would go there,
I think
Yeah.
it's worth it.
definitely.
Especially
Yeah,
if it inspires him to come back another summer in between coursework.
Yeah, I agree.
Like he's happy with whatever we're doing. So I'm fine with that. He's great. So as long as it's not killing us.
Okay, I can make that change. So then any other comments on those
And so-
changes so
I-
far?
So,
What is the increased
Question for
parking
overhead
meter
rent.
fee? I'm sorry, I should have asked this before. The increased parking meter fee?
What do you mean sorry, can you rephrase
What
like,
is- I'm sorry, what is the increased parking meter fee? It says increased parking meter fees $948. What is that?
if we,
No, it's not 940.
But
It's increase the parking. Oh,
it's
increase
up on the
parking
top.
fees.
It's an expense.
yep, I didn't get down there yet. That's why I was confused where we were.
Oh, I'm
But
sorry. I thought
That's
we were,
okay.
okay.
I'll address it. Increased parking meter fees.
I
So
can wait.
that's okay. I assumed that we were going to go ahead and increase the parking meter lot from $1 an hour to $1.50 per hour, effective in June. So if we increase the revenue correlating, we have to increase some of the credit card fees on the expense side. So that's what I'm estimating that to be.
We
Thank you, I'm
also,
sorry.
Devo has quoted me a price of somewhere between $650 and $750 to increase the price on the meter. Turns out the meter has a posted price per hour. So they have to reprogram the meter. They have to change the card that is visible on the front of the meter. And it's not just a card, it's a laminated card. And that cost will be somewhere between $650 and $750. I'm
What?
looking into,
Why is it so high for a laminated card?
it's not just the laminated card, it's the cost of the programming that they have to do. It's the signage and the lamination of the signage. And there was another fee in there as well. I can't remember what it was. I've gone back to them twice, Heidi, to try to get the price down. But right now, that is the price that they're giving us.
Wow.
At the same time, I'm pursuing an alternative to that. I don't have it in hand yet, but I'm pursuing that.
It would be, this is yet another reason that it seems like a great idea to shift to the phone-based, the app.
Unfortunately, we own that meter and we paid dearly
Yeah,
for
I
it.
know.
Any alternative would require bagging the meter or removing the meter and new signage throughout the municipal lot.
But that seems like it's part of the consideration going forward when we shift to
Going forward, yes, I'm just saying, if we want to change the fee now,
so
we're
does it
faced
make
with that.
sense? Does it make sense to change the fee if we're not going to stay with that metered system? To go through with this cost of programming change, et cetera? I mean, what's the amount that we increase income if we go up to 150? $11,840.
About 11,000.
Okay, so yes, it does make sense to do that. It's a lot to make the change, but in the scheme of the income increase, it's not a lot.
As I say, I don't have a solution that I'm proposing. I'm exploring a couple of different alternatives. Once
Okay.
I have everything in hand, I'll report back.
Sounds good.
Would it make sense to increase from $1 to $2? I mean, if we're gonna think of, do it to $1.50 this year and then maybe another 50 cents next year, would it make sense?
Any amount is reasonable.
Mhm.
It seems to me that there is no top price point that people will pay to park there. And we could certainly, although I haven't discussed this with Devo, have a certain rate for weekdays, a different rate for weekend days, and a different rate for weekend nights. We get a reasonable amount of income from Wednesday nights for the obvious reason, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights. And in the summertime last year, we were at capacity almost every single weekend. Not necessarily on both days, but definitely on Saturdays. Saturdays are a big day. Sunday is less a big day because that's when Fair Street is free.
So if
Free parking.
up to near the church, you mean?
The whole
Yes.
street is free to park on Sundays.
So if I was actually going in the same direction Fran was and thinking about 2. And if we have the capacity to vary the rates during the week and on the weekends, that seems like a smart choice to be able to not maximize, but increase the revenue we're able to bring in on the busy weekends and step the cost back when the traffic is lower during the week. That seems like a plus all around to me. If we're going to be spending the money to change the signs anyway, why not change it in a way that makes more sense? I mean, offers more options.
The Park Mobile app, and talking to Park Mobile, and this is my impression, and we're going to be meeting with them, I think this coming week, is that we will have a dashboard that we could work off of and change the rates whenever we want, for weekends or different weeks and whatever days and whatever amounts we want.
Right. But for now, we have to deal with paying to program. So if we're paying to program, we may as well, and we have the capacity with Devo to make a more varied rate fee schedule and increase our revenue. That seems like a good option, to go into $2 on the weekend and something else during the week.
But going with the meter that we have now, we can't change things.
But I think Marie was just saying you can.
Yeah, we can, but they can't. I don't think they can adjust using the meter. Correct me if I'm wrong, Marie. That using the meter that we have now, if they change it, would be for one rate. I don't think they can change it on different days and weeks or holiday.
I can check with them on that. But if there's a rate card on the facade of the meter, and there is a rate card on the facade of the meter, I don't know how much space there is on the rate card to indicate this day, that day, this hour, that hour.
Got it. I misunderstood. I thought you were saying that we could do it now with the rate card. I misunderstood. Sorry.
No, I was probably not clear. We can change the rate from $1 to a different flat rate.
Got it.
24 hours a day. I don't know, given our current rate card and the fact that it's posted on the facade of the meter, I don't know what options we have available to us to specify one rate on days during weekends, but I can certainly pursue that.
So for the purpose of budget, should Michelle just add an expense of $650, whatever Devo said the cost is? We should probably just put that in the budget, because somewhere along the line, we're going to have to.
I would put it in the budget, and we can drop it if we choose to go a different route.
And I would advocate for $2, as Fran did, rather than $1.50.
I think that's very reasonable.
So was the cost $650, Marie, or $700? I forget what it was.
I think it's $650. I dealt with them yesterday, and they came back with another discount, and I just haven't gone through the numbers yet to see what the bottom line is with the new discount.
Okay. Thank you.
So what do you think about $2, Dave?
I'm fine with it. I just think I would rather have flexibility of moving it around. If you're charging $2 during the week and there's other parking around, you just won't go to the lot. Or maybe it will. I don't know if 50 cents is going to be a deterrent. I'm fine with $2. See where it goes. And I definitely think it should be $2 on weekends.
I do too.
I think it should even be more. If people are willing to pay $20 for a day, then crank it up to something similar.
So, if we're gonna do $2, is if we don't know what we're gonna be doing down the road. So assuming that we did $2 now with Devo and the parking meter, but we changed to a more flexible option later on in the year, do you think you would take down the cost during the week back to $1 and keep the weekend high? Or once it's two all the time?
I don't know, Michelle. It's a fair question. I don't know what the rate will bear on weekdays and weeknights, whether or not $2 will be an inhibitor. One of the things I've been discussing with Devo is to meter through Flowbird the 30+ spaces in front of Mayor's Park as well. They can do that at no charge to extend the parking pay structure through a credit card app and Flowbird for those 30 parking spaces. So that's something that could potentially factor into the mix. So there's options there and revenue options there. If Devo does the transition of rate for us, it's going to take them 2 to 4 weeks. Now, in my previous life, I was a programmer. I know how these things work. And if you have any reasonably structured software, what you have is a table. You have a Village of Cold Spring table set up to be $1 an hour. And all you need to do is go in and change the table to be $2 an hour. Why it takes 2 to 4 weeks is beyond me, but that's what they've told me. So even if we say go now, we won't be able to have it implemented through Devo for up to 4 weeks, but we should be able to have it by June 1st.
So then, upping the parking lot, and this is all based on assumptions that the parking lot is used the same way it's been used for the past 3 years. I accounted for, March and April when the pandemic first hit, because that had no usage. So assuming that the parking lot's used the same as it should be, adding 50 cents adds $11,000. But if we're not sure what we're going to end up doing throughout the rest of the year during the week, instead of increasing another 11, I think that we should only increase it by half of that. That sounds fair to everyone?
Yes.
It does to me.
Okay.
And then any other increase is gravy.
Okay. So that sounds good. So that's almost 6,000 there. Okay. So then the cost will go up another 500 too for credit card fees themselves. And then I can put the 700 for the programming change in next year's budget, but if we can get it done before May 31st, that would be even better.
Better, yeah.
The objective would be to do that.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
We jumped down.
Yep.
From.
I mean, that was me. I apologize.
That's okay. I just want to ask one more question for people who have more experience. Are you hissing?
Sorry.
Is one person for 13 weeks enough help for summer help? From what you've seen for highway?
Well, according to Bugsy in my conversations with him, the guy that we have, Jack DeVecchi, that's doing the lawn mowing, is cut Bruce's time, our previous lawn person, in half, and he could probably pick up some of their grass cutting. So I think, yeah, the answer is yes.
How many hours do we have? How many hours do we have in for?
The summer help, 40
No.
hours. Oh, the.
Giacomo.
Yep. So he's seasonal. I have him 21 hours a week for 34 weeks.
And do you know what his average was? I think he just
He
started?
just started, but the little work that he did,
Yeah,
it was well under 15 a week. And that included doing some of Bugsy's extra work on the side. I think he fixed the scag or something for us. So there's the room for him to take care of rec dockside at 21 hours together. And then, you know, if he doesn't full that, he can move some over to highway. And then 34 weeks is kind of a long season, but I never know what the leaves, because there's leaves in December nowadays. So that might even be a little extra wiggle room there with the extended time.
the summer guy we had last year, did we hire two and then one of them quit within 2 or 3 weeks?
2 or
Do you
3
remember?
weeks, 2 or 3 days.
Okay, did we keep one on or did we just have, or did we end up with nobody and that's why we got Giacomo?
No, so one guy, we hired two, one left in 2 or 3 days, the other one stayed only till the beginning, mid-August at the latest. And then Giacomo was a replacement for rec when we had to seek new
Right,
folks in there.
Yeah, the one, we had Dominic who had the emergency appendicitis. So he was out for a few weeks, but he was the one summer guy.
Okay.
Then he can come back. And the other one quit. Yeah. I mean, it was like the second day or third day he walked off.
And something similar happened the year before, didn't it? We ended up with one, or I forget. It
Oh,
doesn't
it
seem.
sounds,
It was
It
the
sounds
same
like
guy
one
the year
person
before who left early. With
but
no
we've made
notice.
do with one person and been okay.
Yes.
Well, we had Bruce,
Yes, but
No.
now we've got Giacomo.
pardon me?
But now we've got Giacomo, right? And Bruce.
Giacomo, I think we have Giacomo for more hours.
No, he's replacing Bruce. Just what Bruce used to do, that's what Jack DeVecchio is doing, or Giacomo.
But he's not in at more hours than Bruce.
I don't think so.
Budgeted wise, no.
Okay,
Okay. So then moving back up to engineering contractual. I spoke with Dave about, things that we might need to have engineering done for that are non-chips related. And, there's nothing pressing right this moment that really needs to be engineered, but we don't want to not have money because P&D, last time they did a proposal, it was quite a few $1,000s. But 15,000 seemed high, so I dropped it by 3,000. So we still have $12,000 for non-chips engineering. And as the year goes, if we have something somewhere else and we need more engineering, we can move money around. But I think that 12,000 would be okay, especially when we don't have a plan that we need to happen, say tomorrow, that's ready to go.
what do we have for engineering? We have the wall and we have Fair Street.
So the wall, I believe the engineering was already done
Who did that?
mostly.
Who did that?
Donald McDonald.
Donald.
Is he a certified engineer?
It's
I know he's a certified architect,
Architect, yeah.
but I didn't think he,
There's stamped plans that we can work with, and which we sent out for the RFP.
okay. So the other one is Fair Street.
And what's happening on Fair Street?
Yeah, what's happening on Fair Street?
It's Rupert Murdoch's
No,
slope.
Homes.
I think that's a meeting for discussion on whether we're continuing on with that or whether we need to address that right away.
Okay.
I
and
think that's one of the only engineering that I think we need. Did we?
What about
we even had an engineer specifically? I mean, I know water and sewers had an engineer, over the years, and usually needs one and still does. But the village didn't have an engineer until we hired P&D, did they? And was there a line? There was nothing in our budget for that, was there?
For the Main Street project, I think there was engineering involved, but that was paid for by
Right, through the
Grant.
grant or whatever it was.
whatever, the Albany firm.
Yeah.
is there any reason that the slope there's a drainage element under the Irish steps. And if we're looking at repairing those, does that need any engineering?
Don't know.
Well, throwing it out there.
Is that in the sidewalk or in the road?
It's on a hillside between Parrot Street and Main Street.
I ask because I'm trying to distinguish between chips and non-chips.
That's not.
I don't think it would be a chips thing.
Definitely not.
Well, I don't know. I just know that there is a drainage pipe under there, and that may be something that needs to be addressed as part of repair. I don't know. I'm not an engineer.
Do you see erosion occurring?
And it, but it may be, maybe it's from the heavy rains in the spring. Maybe it's not it's going to be a recurring problem. I don't know. Have a look, walk by and see what you think. I haven't paid enough attention to it over the years to know how incrementally different it is from erosion in years past.
So we're not paying P&D a retainer, right? We just pay them as we use them.
Correct.
What about engineering for any Chazen work?
I think, I know Matt is looking to get an engineer specifically for water and wastewater.
And that'd be in that budget.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I assume the Chazen would be too?
You're right, Fran. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So is it okay
we're-
to just leave it at 12,000 for right now instead of 15? I think.
I don't think 3 is going to make that much of a difference. And
Yeah.
if we really need it and stuff comes up, we'll find it.
Okay.
sometime.
So the next one is the unallocated insurance line. So that's our general liability insurance. I reached out to our broker, who's reached out to our policyholder. Our policy is not up until August, so it's very hard for them to give us a good estimate, especially without, going through a formal application, a renewal and all that nice stuff. But I had put in 8% and they're thinking that, a 10 to 11% is a better estimate. So I upped that line by $1,000 to increase our insurance premiums.
Is that due to overall general premium increases, or is that based upon the number of claims we've made?
A little bit of both.
Yeah. Michelle, I think we might even need to up that even a little bit more.
Yeah,
The new garbage truck.
I
Okay.
have $1,000 separate in that line from the first go around of the budget for the new garbage truck. Okay, anything else for that?
No, I'm just thinking, with all the claims we had the last year, I think,
Even more?
yeah.
Because that's what Kieran had suggested, that the overall policy would go up about 9 to 10,000.
And Kieran is our agent, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
From what I understand, though, if we have a lot of claims, they don't just fall squarely on our back. It spreads out over everyone who's in that.
In that
forget what they
insurance
call it.
pool? The
Yes,
insurance
in
pool.
all the other municipalities that are in there because of the way the insurance company is, the way NYMER is. So it's not going to all fall on us, but they will carry on forever and ever. I think
Well-
5 years. I think they ride on us for 5 years.
I mean, if that's the estimate he's giving you and he knows
Yeah.
the claims over the last year, I would say take the top end of what Kieran is suggesting.
Michelle, did you include the new police car in that as well?
I did not, because I assumed that the oldest police car would come off, and it seems like that those new to old is only like $100 or $200 difference. It's not significant.
Okay.
So then we talked about the parking meter, and then I spoke with Bugsy. Hayes requesting a new plow on one of the pickup trucks, but he said that he can have that done by May 31st. There is money in his budget to do that. So I took it out of next year's budget so that he can get it done this year, and then that saved us, $5,000 next year. I think 5,000 is on the high side, but I think it's not just a plow. There was electrical issues with it as well. Because I
Does
know
that
that
need-
that seems high.
Does that need to go through state bid, and can we get it done between now and the end of May?
I don't think it would need to go through state bid, but if it really is 5,000, he would need to, ask a couple of the local repair shops for pricing.
Would the NCPA membership help us out there?
What
We
does
could
that
look, I think probably would be better, more realistic would be to see if there's state or county contracts available that we could
Okay.
piggyback on.
Okay,
What does NCPA mean?
it means NCPA, National Conglomerate of
Purchasing or
Name-
procurement.
Agencies,
Yeah.
or something like that.
So it's a conglomerate that we use to.
We've never used them before. I've asked
We just
Michelle-
joined yesterday.
Yeah,
Okay,
when I was doing pricing on parking meters, I was told that if we belonged to NCPA, they would give us a break. So it just seemed like it's no cost to join. It seemed like a very logical thing to do.
Yeah.
Michelle, in the past, we had, we purchased the Skag and we also purchased a trailer through CHIP. Can you purchase a plow through CHIPS?
I don't know. I think the equipment has to have a useful life of 10 years.
Oh,
And I'm
okay.
not sure that plows are that long.
They should be. Okay.
But I can ask, but
Yeah,
I know
you
that
could.
that's the requirement.
what is a skag? Sorry.
That's the,
It's an ugly person.
Well, yes, other than that one.
It's a
It's a
zero
zero
turn
turn
radius
motor.
A what?
zero turn
Turn
lawnmower,
Zero turn radius.
Oh, the
lawnmower.
ones that zzzz and they spin?
and you sit on it.
Yeah, okay. I've been waiting to make that sound effect since I took office.
Good.
Feel very satisfied. Carry on, Michelle.
Okay. So those are the changes I made on the expense side. Does anybody, before we go into revenue, does anybody else have any ideas on changes that might be needed on expenses?
At some point, I assume we're going to talk about the line items that were dropped from the budget.
Yep, I'll
Okay,
do that in the second half then.
okay.
So then for revenue, so right now I'm talking about changes that I actually made. So revenue, like we talked about, I upped the parking. We're gonna up it a little bit more. So
I'm
we
sorry, upping it a little bit more. I thought we were gonna hold off on that.
For two.
I
thought we
upped
were
it
gonna-
for 50 cents.
Right.
And now we're gonna up it another little bit for the $2, because I think we agreed that we're gonna go to $2 for the lot, right? No?
Well, I thought Fran and Dave and I think Heidi also thought that was a good idea.
Yeah.
I threw it out, but
I thought we were going to look into one rate for during the weekdays
Right.
and a different
Yeah.
rate for weekends.
Okay, so
If we
then, we'll-
can't do that, if we can't do that, then we're definitely gonna raise it.
Yes, I
Right.
agree. We're
Yeah.
definitely going to raise it
Right.
to at least $1.50. I
Yeah.
think $2 could be, it could be have a negative impact during the week.
Right.
But
When street parking is more available, you mean?
yes, or even now, a street parking on Main Street is quite available on weekdays other than Thursday and Friday.
Yeah, I think once we get into April, we're gonna have different, once the weather gets nice,
Yeah.
but right now, there's nobody in the lot, or a couple people, and they think they feel secure in the lot, and will pay some money, but there's
Yeah.
not a lot of people.
okay, so we're just gonna assume $1.50 change for right now.
For the time being, I'd say, until I can get some idea about what it would take to go to a variable rate.
Okay. So then it'll just be an 11,800 increase for parking meter. That's the $1 to $1.50. I added a fund balance contribution for both the police vehicle that we talked about, and I also, to balance the budget, I did it for the first payment of the dump truck.
How many dump truck payments are there?
I assumed usually finance vehicles for 3 years.
3 years, okay.
We haven't put it out to bid. I don't know if it'll be a 5-year payment, 3 years. We don't know. We have to even find out what the total price of a dump truck is. Going off that it's going to be about, at 35, including financing, a truck would be probably like 90, 95.
Okay.
What was the vehicle that we decided or we talked about paying for in cash?
The
We
police
talked-
vehicle,
Was it the police vehicle?
that's the one we talked about. Yep. The garbage truck is already in motion. That one will be paid for in cash.
When do we get that?
Your guess is as good as mine. I've been going back and forth with this guy who doesn't answer. Right now, I'm waiting for him to type me a sentence so that we could turn around and Dave and Bugsy can say, okay, you can make this sentence change. So we're not going to okay something on the phone without it being in writing. And he felt that way, but he hasn't wrote me his sentence of what he's changing. But they did say that Kenmore is having a problem with one of the chips manufacturing is held up at the plant, but they won't give me a time frame. I've pushed.
So we have to have that by the end of May, right? If we're
No, we
paying
do
for it.
not. It's being paid for from fund balance. So if it's not paid out of fund balance this year, it'll be paid out of fund balance next year. I don't have it in the budget for next year, but when it comes closer to the time of adoption, if it really looks like the garbage truck won't be ready, it's a net zero revenue and expense.
So the fund balance that we have available for this year is already taken out of fund balance, and so we'll put it back and take it out again, right?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
So overall for next year, the fund balance is, 250. I had 250,000 for some projects, a lot of them which weren't done this year, which is the same amount, and then we're adding the 35 and for the police car, which only adds 29 from fund balance. Well, 53 total. But overall, at the end of the day, after all this up and down savings, we're still going to have about 700,000 in the general fund, even with all this spending. So we're still I'm comfortable with that number. And that might even be higher because I assume that we were spending a little more this year that I really don't think we're going to spend. But I'm trying to be conservative, worst case scenario. So we're still in a good spot paying for some of these things out of fund balance. And it gets us through the budget for these big one-time payments and purchases.
Michelle, what does all of that translate into in terms of the tax rate?
What do you mean in terms of the tax rate?
Okay, so the real property taxes are estimated to be a certain amount, and that is based upon a certain tax rate for the fiscal year 21-22. What is that rate? I know we had two rates that we could work from, 103 for the CPI, and I think it was 104 for Butterfield.
Mm-hmm.
They're additive, they're not additive, they're compounded.
So the price, you mean like the price per assessed value?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't calculate that yet. I will work on that over the weekend for what it will be.
Because that, to me, for me to say yes to what we have here, I would really like to know what kind of tax rate we're going to be issuing for our residents, for property values in the village.
Okay, so it's calculated by assessed value and the amount of taxes we raise. So the fund balance won't change it.
And I wasn't expecting it to.
Okay.
Right, it's independent.
Okay.
Totally independent of the fund balance.
Okay. Okay. So for now, those were the changes that I made to balance the budget. And then I wrote out some pending items. And then, these are some items in addition up for discussion. So the New York State has to adopt their budget on April 1st. AIM was cut by 3,300 in the governor's proposed, but the House and the Senate are seeking to restore AIM to its full amount. So that might add 3,300 to the budget. They're also calling to restore the winter recovery money as part of the CHIPS program. But that would be a net zero effect, because if our revenue goes up for CHIPS, then our expense would have to go up for CHIPS.
Right, right.
C Streak, I have 0 in for right now. We're waiting to see if that's feasible, if they're gonna do a proposal for us. And then parking, we talked about that already. I didn't put anything in for, Mayor's Park, Fair Street, or for Main Street, anything like that. No changes. And then another big change, which is so vague and up in the air, is the American Rescue Plan. That's the act that the president signed in a couple days ago. So it's not clear exactly how much we're going to get, and when we're going to get it. We might get some this fiscal year and then some next, or it might be next and the following, because it could be anywhere from, at a minimum, 30 days from signing up to, 6 months from signing. So I don't think we're really gonna get it before June 1st, but I don't even know if we'll know how much we're gonna get to really account for it in the budget, or how we can spend it. But it is money that's coming.
Is it, I haven't followed it and I apologize, but is that money earmarked for small municipalities like us, or will it come to the state level or the county level and have them divvy it out?
So it's going to the state for them to pass it through to us, but the federal agencies determine the amount. It's not up to the state to figure out how much they want to give us. They're going to be told how much.
All the way down to the municipal level, not just county?
Yep. Villages are included. Right now, they're saying an estimate, and this is a very rough estimate, it could change, $109 per person based on the 2019 census.
Per
Capita.
per capita, okay.
Every person in the village. And that number, this 2019 census, if that's the census they use, is 1,947 people.
I'm sorry, Michelle, and you said as of now, there are no guidelines for how we can use it, or just?
They're very vague. They say you can use it for water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. You can use it for revenue that was lost due to the pandemic. You can use it for premium pay for essential workers, or you can use it for costs related to the pandemic. Very vague, doesn't say what exactly is a cost, what constitutes loss of revenue. The states, the senators, we talked to Chuck Schumer, he gave a presentation. So his office and the whole Senate's office of New York State is working with the Department of Treasury to find out, more, I guess, not stricter guidelines, but more detailed guidelines on what that money can actually be used for.
More specific, but it seems like we could easily find a place for it.
We believe it when we get it.
Well, it's an offset. I mean, we don't plan for it, but if we get it, we'll be happy, and it can offset other things.
Do we have to justify the amount, Michelle? I know you and I talked about revenue losses because of the pandemic, C Street, Beer Fest.
None of that has been determined yet. It seems like the money's going to just come without having to apply paperwork for it. That was a big question. But it's not sure, what we have to do after we get the money. Will we have to justify? What are we going to have to document? Will we have to send money back if it's not used the way, within the guidelines? None of that is clear. None of it, unfortunately. And that's what, the senator's office is working with NICOM and the feds to do. I wish I had more answers. It would make my life easier too. But they just don't. I sat through a 2-hour meeting the other day. And that was it. You're getting money. So thank you, but I don't know what you're getting. So that's just something to keep in the back of our mind, but we should definitely, do the budget assuming that,
we don't have anything.
We don't know what we're going to be used for.
Right.
And if it's used for revenue that's lost, then it just makes up for, stuff that we didn't use, and then it would end up going into savings. I don't know.
Yep.
So then expenses that we left pending, maybe change if the minutes are done by the board, but I have it assumed in the budget that the board has a secretary right now, all the ZBA, HDRB, and planning. We
A
talked
comment,
about,
a comment on that, in having been on a board and having talked to at least one of the board chairs, it would be a significant imposition on board members to have to take minutes. When you're a member of the board, you're actively listening to what's going on and actively engaging in any of the dialogues. For someone to take the time to begin jotting down minutes, that would be, in my opinion, a significant distraction during board meetings. And if it's done by going through the video of the board meeting, that's an additional chore on one or more of the board members. My bottom line is, I think it's a mistake to remove someone from taking minutes from the boards, the three primary boards, zoning, planning, and HDRB.
okay,
I
it's
agree
still in the
with you.
budget. It was just up for discussion because I didn't think we finished that conversation.
I'll
Yeah,
just
I
give
agree
it,
with Marie on that because all the board members are basically volunteers and they're giving a lot of their time currently.
Yeah.
In taking minutes and then presenting typed minutes and putting in whatever they have to do. I think it is an awful lot more for people, many of who are working full time and running to meetings.
Okay.
I guess
just an
it just
alternate
depends on,
perspective. Sorry, I am the secretary for the Farmers Market Board, and I've been a board member, and I have no problem taking notes while being engaged in the meeting. So it might just be person to person and depending on the board and the board member, because most boards that I know of have volunteer, and all volunteer boards with people who have full-time jobs have a secretary, and that person takes notes. So it might be worthwhile to approach the different boards and just see what their comfort level is, because, you know, like for me, it's not an issue, but I understand if for some people it might be.
Yeah, so I did do that, Heidi, with one of the boards.
Right,
And-
one of the boards, yeah.
And
the other,
now, the understanding what the board does in the meeting is they typically intently listen to whomever is appearing in front of the board with the problem that that person has. So if it's a zoning board, someone is asking for a zoning variance to put an addition on their house. And so you listen very intently. You continuously refer to the code as to what the code permits or doesn't permit. And
I
then,
understand.
and then at the end of the zoning board meeting, the members have to very, very clearly go through the 5 criteria for issuing or denying a variance. When you're in the middle of that discussion, that's all your mind is focused on. You're listening to every single board member voice their opinion or interpretation of the code and the request in front of the board. As I say, it's an actively listening session.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
Like I said, I am on a board and I take notes at the same time. And again, I think it varies person to person. So if we ask all of the 3 main boards, I just think it's worth doing.
Michelle, how much have we budgeted for this position?
So for the 3 boards, it's about 7,200.
not a huge amount of money,
Thank
but
you.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know which board you talked to, Marie, but my experience on the HDRB is that generally 2 board members were taking notes anyway, because the minutes that we got needed to be double checked and updated anyway. So at least 2 people were always, I took notes on a laptop and Andrea took notes in handwriting. So, and we're actively listening at the same time. So maybe it does depend on board structure and board comfort. It's not a huge amount of money, but it does seem like it can end up being a position that can be duplicative depending on the sort of culture and character of the board.
I just from my opinion, I'm not a secretary. I don't take notes. I would find it actually really hard taking notes for anything, even our meetings while we're talking about things and then having things down without going back and listening to everything to write it down, which I wouldn't expect or someone to do. I think that's a lot of work. Being at a lot of zoning board meetings and planning board meetings, I think like Marie said, there's a lot going on there to not be able to concentrate on actually what's, real time and to be taking minutes. I think that's a lot to ask from people that are already putting a lot of time in, and a lot of these issues have been really pretty complicated lately.
Thorny, yes.
Well, and that's true. And when there are issues that are of concern, you want to make sure it's right. And I certainly don't want to make any volunteer board's job harder. It seemed like a possibility, but at the end of the day, it doesn't actually save that much anyway in the grand scheme of things.
We'll leave it. It's fine.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
So, and then if, somebody wants to volunteer on the board to do it, then it's savings, but they'll have the option to have their secretary, and that allows for changes on the board and anything that they have their person.
That's a good point.
Oh, one other thing on that, like Jeff, isn't this secretary not just taking minutes though? Isn't that what this position's for getting stuff together and setting stuff and sending it to?
Yeah, what I put together and gave you, the position was a lot more than just taking and doing the minutes. For that, it's all the preparation. There is all the stuff that has to go online. It's evolved and it's changed a lot in the last year and continues to do so.
And then what
prepping the board for
to filing and putting stuff away at the ends, or I don't know, now that we're Zooming, is that still, to have somebody, and that I would assume this person's going to be taken care of, or no?
Yeah, I mean, Anne's been doing that now for the boards. So she's been doing that lately.
Okay.
I mean, we still need to keep paper files. By law, we have to keep a final file as we're finding out with the lawsuits. It's important.
Yeah.
That we have that. So that's still part of it. But one of the issues is if you have someone who's at the board, at the meetings, and when it comes time to creating that final file, they know what's duplicated information. They know what's not necessarily, what's important to the final product and what's just extra stuff. As Kathleen, as you know, with HDRB, there's a lot of information, a lot of paper comes through that at the end of the day doesn't need to be in that file, doesn't need to be scanned. It's just unnecessary.
And that is really hard to do if you haven't been, that's one of the way that a lot of Linda's work evolved into board member work, because when we didn't have a Linda in the office as much, it was hard for staff who weren't at the meetings to actually go through and put together the final copy.
And it's difficult for someone who's independent of the boards to make that determination of what needs to stay and what could go. So.
I didn't mean to detract. I just wanted to make sure the money is, hopefully the secretary is going to be doing just more than minutes, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think it's a good idea. If somebody
It is
wants
a great
to
idea.
That's great.
It's a value add for sure.
Okay, and then another topic that I haven't brought up, but I talked over it with Larry, and I wanted to bring it to the board. So in purchasing the new SUV Explorer for the police department, there is the option to go from an all-gas engine to a hybrid engine, but it adds $3,000 to the cost of the vehicle. Just putting that option out there. So all the quotes and everything we've talked about is on a gas engine, but Ford has come out with a hybrid Pursuit rated model, but it adds $3,000.
So
Is there any way?
question on that is savings on gas.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
Any idea?
It's brand new. I don't know about that. I don't know the ins and outs of it. Larry might be able to do some research on that. I would assume if it's a hybrid, but I don't know how that hybrid engine actually works. I don't know if if it's when it's idling, if it's has to hit a certain miles per hour to switch to back. I have no idea about that. I just know the cost.
I think
There
if
were
he-
a way,
if he could get some more information, I'd be interested for sure, but
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
I like the idea of a hybrid.
it seems like over time, it's very likely it would pay for that $3,000, but would be good to know more.
So
Well,
do we,
any opportunity to reduce our municipal footprint would be superb.
do we have any idea? I'm assuming that it would be, that it needs recharging?
I
Overnight
believe that it recharges itself. I believe.
Yeah, usually for
Yeah.
hybrids, they recharge as you drive. It
Yeah.
has to do, you don't have to plug them in. It's usually only like pure electric that you have to plug in.
But if
Also
our
for the braking
vehicles are
mechanism.
sitting, if our vehicles sit, they sit idling, I'm wondering what that will do or not do for the ability for it to charge. As Heidi said, they charge as you drive. Whether or not that'll happen as it idles, I don't know. And I realize the reason why they leave them idling. But that's, I mean, I'd love to go to a hybrid. I'd love to little by little get our whole fleet going that way.
Maybe when you talk to Larry tomorrow, Fran, ask him if he knows of these being used in other agencies and how they've been. Please, I don't mean to make that sound like, or would you please ask him to see if he, I know it's a newer vehicle, so maybe there aren't so many around, but if he has any sense from other departments' use.
I believe it's only been an option last 2 years at best, maybe even only the last year and a half.
And the issue with the charging, I mean, the issue with the idling is less about the vehicle itself. And what I thought I understood Larry to say was that when the vehicle shuts off completely, the reconnection to the internet for the computer takes so long that it becomes a liability to shut the car off because they can't reconnect to their online system
Yeah.
fast enough. And that doesn't
Yeah.
sound like a car issue. That sounds like a connectivity issue with our connection.
Well, I think that's with
I
any
don't-
computer that you turn on. You turn it off, it takes mine a while to go on too, so.
Well, 20 minutes is a
Go
long
on.
time.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's anything that can be, if the performance of that connection can be enhanced in any way by our tech crew, but it seems like,
I think so the cars used to work off of a jump pack, like a portable internet, and now the internet is hardwired into the cars. I don't know anything more than that, but now that it's hardwired into the car, I mean, the jump pack still, if that power down, power up, but the hardwiring is tied. I believe the power for the modem inside the car is tied to the car's engine. So I don't think it's connectivity in the sense of like there's bad cell service. I think it's just how it works.
as Larry described it, the problem was once the connection was lost, there was so much further time lost to reconnecting.
Mhm.
Well, I don't know, maybe when you hear him explain it in another way, Fran, tomorrow, you'll understand better than I did.
Sure. I will get there.
It was an
So-
ancillary conversation, so.
We'll leave that as a pending item. If we do choose to do that, that too would be a net zero effect, because we're paying for the car out of fund balance.
Right.
It's just a matter if we want to. And we still would have to bid out the car. Lowry did get 3 state quote prices, and that's where these numbers are coming from. But we still have to bid it, and these same dealerships that gave him paper quotes would have to submit the quote and the bid through the New York State system. So then those are the topics that I have listed as up for discussion. Marie had wanted to bring up, and I agree, some things that I didn't put in the budget. E-code is one of them.
Oh,
So
How do you
that,
feel, how do you feel about that, Fran?
no.
I'm weeping, openly weeping over here.
I think Jeff will feel worse.
Yep.
but
Everybody knows my feelings on it.
so we're making some changes to the budget as it is, and I wonder, Fran, you had mentioned that there was milestone and progress payments.
Yes. Mhm.
If we could figure out progress payments, and when we would actually be doing E-code, if it's not 10,000, we would have to know what that first milestone is, or how many milestones would really be done in, from June to May. To know, like, there's right now to add 10,000, is hard, but if we're adding 4,000, we might be able to, see, based on some of the other changes. And if revenue comes, like if the state comes back and restores our aim, that's 3,300 right there. That could help. So
And yeah, Marie, I think the last time we discussed this, and I think my internet went down, I said to you, there was something you said that I had to go back to. This was it. You said something about the timeline. I was thinking that we probably wouldn't need E-code until the end of the year, once everything is finalized with the code, the end of 21. But we can discuss that later if you want. So I can have some kind of a timeline, and then I'll go back to E-code and speak to the lady that I spoke to and see if I can get a better.
I think that I thought I had printed out all of the dates. Apparently I didn't. I think that we have to have the draft code amendments done by June 30th of this year, and then have a public hearing on them by, I think the date is September. So for much of the work that we would want, it would be ideal to have E-code in place such that it was usable between June 30th and September 30th. And then we have to file with the state by the first quarter of 2022. So that to me is the end date.
Why do you think that you would need it? I'm sorry that I don't know the onboarding process for E-code. Why do you think that you would need it at the point of public hearing and before the code is complete, as opposed to when all of the changes are input and complete at the end of 2021?
I don't understand the question. Can you ask it again?
Yeah, let me try to be clear. Maybe I misunderstood. What I thought you were saying just now was that the ideal time to bring on E-code would be this June 2021.
So that we could have the materials in hand for the public meeting by August, the end of August.
But why would you need E-code to be able to provide materials to the public? Couldn't we provide what we have in the format we have now and then get E-code when it's all done?
So the format that we have right now is missing the header and the footer. So there will be no page numbers, no indication that chapter 126-4 to chapter 126-5 is on this page, and there'll be no page number at the bottom of the page. So that's why, in my opinion, it's an opinion only, but I think it would be extremely helpful for people to be able to have that material in hand for the public hearings.
Yes.
If we don't do it by then, it has to be done by when we file with the Department of State.
And so sorry.
No, go ahead.
If we don't have E-code, if Michelle doesn't put it in the budget and we don't have it in June, how would you do that process otherwise? In the Word document?
Jeff.
Yes, it's a Word document.
It's terribly tedious.
Jeff, maybe you and I can do
It's hugely tedious. Like, what
call.
can we cut to get this man E-code?
Jeff, maybe you and I can do a
Not
conference
getting
call.
the E-code, it's getting the village,
Yes.
but listen, Fran, we went through this when, just updating the HDRB chapter 64, what it took us from a formatting,
Oh, I know.
because
Yes.
different people worked on it with different platforms and
Right.
Yeah.
software.
Yes.
It was a nightmare.
Jeff,
And
maybe
then-
you and I can do a conference call with E-code one day early next week if you want to try that.
Sure.
I'll try to
Plus-
set something up.
To also just like rip off the Band-Aid and make the transition.
Take a
It's
deep
the
breath.
money. It's the money. That's what we're
Yeah,
looking
no, it's the money. But I guess I keep thinking about the amount of hours that we pay, what we're paying Jeff per hour and how slow it's going to be for him to go through a Word document and how much more efficient it would be. Yeah, you know what I'm
All
saying.
right. Let me
Yeah, like the idea of the hybrid, it'll pay for itself.
let me pull the paperwork, the old emails from E-code. When I log back into the office computer, I have all that, and I'll see if we can schedule something for next week. And we'll
Awesome.
take it from there. We'll let you know. Thank you.
One other thing I would point out is if we do it in Word format for the public hearing in September, and there are any substantive comments that we as a board agree need to be incorporated into the document, we have to go through that very tedious process again to make those changes. So something can go from page number at the bottom 29 to page number 30. The header still has to be adjusted as well. So
And then
You
if
can do it
it refers to any other sections in any other part of the code, that all
Right.
has to be tracked down, and E-code would do all of that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, okay, let me talk to them next week, see what we can come up with.
Fran, if you need me on the call, let me know.
I will, thank you.
Okay, other items that I didn't put in, because we didn't really finish the conversation was, any cameras at, the dock. I think people had to look into that more. I didn't put in any changes to the building department. I think that's all that, does anybody else want to talk about some expenses that, we still need to add in or make changes to on the general fund side?
For the building department, I think what we should do is change the code to require digital copies of all materials for a building permit. Right now, digital copies are required for the planning board and for the zoning board. And Kathleen, you could comment on the HDRB. So if there is a referral, the digital copies are available. But for something that doesn't require a referral, if we require that now as part of the building permit material submission, I think that would help what Charlotte is looking for. It doesn't give her what she wanted, but I think it would be helpful.
Well, it also, most people, I mean, Jeff knows this better than I do at this point, but in my experience on the board since COVID, I mean, people have been asking to turn stuff in digitally for a really long time, and people were relieved.
Yeah, it's actually a requirement now. I mean, they have to supply one digital copy.
Right. But even long before that was a requirement, people were asking, could I just send it digitally? So
Yeah.
It seems like a good way to go.
Yeah, so once we have it digitally for the building departments, it's a couple of clicks and we could load it up to the Laserfish system that the county did with the grant a couple of years ago. Everything else resides now. So
the cameras at the dock, I may be fusing two issues in my head, so somebody can set me straight if I am. It seemed that there was a question of licensing fees that we might have to pay for the LPRs, right? We weren't sure if we were paying for them and the county were paying for them. Didn't we talk about that last time? And where the cameras.
That's the police LPRs.
Right. So do we have resolution on whether or not we have to pay for the licensing, or if the county's paying for it?
We have to pay for it.
We have to pay for it.
I spoke to Larry today. We have to pay at least for the annual maintenance of the license, which is roughly a little less than 1,600. I think it's 1,580 for the year, and that's a 5-year agreement.
And that's in the budget right now already. So we weren't able to save anything there that might go toward the cameras at the dock.
No.
I'm sorry. I hate to sound.
There's an additional cost for the cameras, which is storing the camera materials someplace. And I would think that we need to talk with Anthony.
The data, you mean?
Yeah, well, yeah.
The record.
Wait, let's go back. Are we talking about storing data from an LPR or storing data from a village-owned camera, like for the dock?
For the LPR.
The LPR, I think, is handled totally separate at Westchester County Crimes or somewhere else it's held. I believe we don't have to worry about that storage so long as we pay for the license.
That was my understanding as well. But there is then the data stream if we were to add cameras at the dock.
We have that, we have, a server is not the right word, but we have a box that has memory sticks that holds it. We have bought one in the past, and an additional memory stick is less than 300. I want to say it was only 200. So that when you add extra cameras, you just buy another memory stick and it supports the stream.
Okay, so it's really, the bulk of this then is the camera purchase and installation, and that was around 6,000, right?
Yes, and then there's a maintenance fee every month. So if the installation is 6,000 for the year, then it's 20% of that for the annual maintenance fee.
We're going to be spending half of our budget on Anthony.
Well, how much of, I mean, you know, we've had some damage at the dock, but over a longer period, how, I know Larry would like the cameras to deal with things like vandalism at the dock, but how much is it really a problem in the lower, on that part of Main Street that we don't have camera coverage? I don't know how to ask that question.
I guess from the letter we got recently, somebody seems to think that there's a lot of vandalism and that, you know, cameras would be a deterrent. Now, whether or not cameras are even going to help, because, you know, can you always see who's doing it? Is it someone local that you recognize? I don't know, but I mean, I know cameras in terms of like along Main Street to catch things like somebody breaking into a store or something like that. Those are good, watching the front door of the offices. But, you know, I mean, as you say, I don't know how much, you know, do we say we have $10 of vandalism, so we shouldn't pay $100 for a camera? I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I'm just asking because all that I know about is that recent report, right? And the lights, the vandalism on the lights has been outstanding because Bugsy's waiting for parts, et cetera. But have we had other problems down there that would lead you all to say, oh, we have a surveillance concern on that part of Main Street?
I wouldn't say yes, that there's evidence that that surveillance cameras will do anything.
Well, right, they're not preventative, but
there hasn't been a lot. There has been not any, it hasn't been brought to my attention or the boards. I don't think that anything besides the ballards and a few things on the dock. And I'm not sure if that's reoccurring or they never got fixed.
Or they never got fixed.
Right.
Okay.
So
Okay.
besides that, I haven't heard of anything like the bandstand or anything else getting trashed or broken or
Okay.
anything.
I know it was on Larry's wish list, but I was trying to contextualize the wish.
I think Larry would like to, cover the whole village, which I guess ideally would be nice.
Ain't gonna happen.
It's gonna have to stay on his wish list.
Any
What
other
about
expenses?
East Belvedere Street? Do we need to talk about that?
Have we got that from John, or we asked John about that? Did we ask John?
I was waiting for Jeff to see if he could find the documentation. Yo, Jeff, were you able to find anything?
No,
Okay.
Arenas had come to a meeting. Some other residents had come to a meeting. There was a question about us not picking up garbage on East Belvedere and Hamilton.
Mhm.
But there was nothing formal. I know we had, Dave, I could swear we asked John at one point about what our responsibilities were for those streets.
Right.
And I went back and I couldn't find a response to his email. And I don't remember if it's something we spoke to him about.
Well, the letter referenced it. The letter said that the village attorney, I can't remember exactly what it said, but it said that there had been an inquiry to the village attorney.
Yeah.
Yes.
I honestly,
2003.
we'll say that again, Heidi.
So in the letter, they date it back to 2003, and they said in 2008, the then village attorney asserted that all residents would have to deed land over to the village. So it seems like a conversation happened in 2008.
But since then, I think with the meeting that Arenas came to, somewhere I remember, now whether or not it was John, and I will look back to find it, it was said that because we have maintained the street for X amount of years, which was Arenas' argument, then it's our responsibility to continue to maintain it, even though we don't own it. But let me go back and see if I can find the email from John.
Where
I have-
maintaining was equivalent to garbage removal, recycle removal, and plowing. That was what maintaining was equivalent to.
Well, plowing is maintaining a road, maintaining an open passageway. I am infinitely confused about this question of private roads in the village, because it seems that some of them we provide services to, some of them we don't. We don't on West Bank, right? What determines?
West Bank, correct. We do not plow. We do not pick up garbage. The post office doesn't deliver mail.
So what determines the picking up of garbage and the removal of snow on East Belvedere?
The handshake agreement's done before us.
Yes, that's all.
The basic handshake agreement's done way before
So
any of
at
us
some
were.
point, some resident or configuration of residents made an agreement with a previous administration to maintain the street.
That's my gut feeling.
Or a previous administration just did it without a handshake agreement or anything.
So,
But it was pretty much set that what we do know is that it is a private road somehow, and
Yes.
that the neighbors have tried to make it, have tried to have the village take over, control of it. And there's always been a neighbor and you need all the neighbors to agree on that. And there's always been a neighbor that hasn't agreed on that.
Yep.
So they have never been able to, turn the road over to us if we have to agree on that. So what we do know is that we're supposed to, John felt we should keep filling holes in the road, because they were talking about, the last time this came up was potholes in the road, and Bugsy couldn't, I believe, back the truck in, or was concerned about that. And then we were wondering, why should we be maintaining that? And it turned out that John felt we should just fill the potholes and pick up the garbage, because we need to pick up the garbage for whatever reason. That's my memory of it.
and our water lines run under the street, right?
There
I'm
is
asking,
a water.
I'm asking, I'm not stating.
So I'm going to answer that. There is a water line that runs under the street. Whether it is the villages or the residents is up for debate. Now, having said that, a resident on the street related to me that there was a water main break within the last, I forget how many years, and each resident put up a certain amount of money to fix the water main. It was never asked of the village to fix it, or if it was, the village declined. There is a sewer line that runs down the street. Whether it is the village's sewer line, I don't know. It does come into the main sewer line on Morris Avenue. The water line onto East Belvedere does come off of the water line on Morris Avenue.
So is
In my mind, to do what they want to do, which is replace the water line, replace the sewer line, and put in an asphalt road, we are talking in the neighborhood of, and I'm not a civil engineer,
right?
I believe it, we're talking about something in the range of $250,000. And that is based upon what it cost us to do Furnace Street. You're going to have to put in storm drains. You're going to have to put in stormwater lines. You're going to have to put in storm drains. You're going to have to excavate the road. You're going to have to put in a level of gravel to provide a base for macadam. And then on top of the gravel, you're going to have to put something else. And then you put the macadam on top of that, but you have to put it low enough so that it doesn't drain into people's front yards. You're going to have to put up curbs. Now, the village code says that village streets are 50 feet wide minimum. That isn't even close to the width of East Belvedere.
So
if we do East Belvedere, the next request will be to do Hamilton.
Okay.
And the next request after that will be to do West Bank. So and I know John doesn't like to talk about precedents, but if we do East Belvedere, there's no defensible reason why we wouldn't do Hamilton and East Bank.
So then, how did we, I don't know if anybody knows the answer to this. I am infinitely confused in how we ended up here, that a developer was able to cut those streets in and send water and sewer service that hooked into the village system without some sort of agreement with the village.
I went back and went through when were the residents built on that street? The first residence was, if I
30s,
remember
right?
correctly, 1933.
Mhm.
And somebody's on an iPhone wanting to come into the meeting.
Can you send them a message and ask them?
Has anyone responded to Joshua K yet? Just out of
No,
curiosity.
no.
Jeff did. Jeff did.
So he knows that we're thinking about it.
So not that we're thinking about it, we're investigating.
Right.
We're
Well,
researching. So given that there's no documentation in Village Hall.
It's Ruth.
Does anyone,
It's Ruth Ann.
given there's no documentation in Village Hall, I will go back to John and describe the situation to him. And
Well,
ask
and
for
what I would
advice.
imagine that there are records on file for the subdivision.
This was done in
Well,
19.
it's the 30s. Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
the-
it just seems like I don't know, I guess we have to get more information, but it seems like if we're providing plowing and removing the garbage, I mean, I went on that street not long ago in a little car and bottomed out. If fire trucks are going to get back there, if ambulances are going to get back there, somebody has to maintain a level surface.
We are maintaining it. I mean, sometimes it's a dirt road and it's gonna have potholes, just like
Yeah.
all of the roads in Phillipstown, and they deal with the same thing. I mean, there's potholes, there's ruts, there's whatever, and it's not a problem for a fire truck to get back there. It's
Yeah.
probably easier for them to get back there than go around Brock Street.
Well, that's a good point. So what are the next steps? What do we have to figure out to?
As I said, I will contact John and see what he advises us.
Just to put some perspective to it, in March of 2018, Bugsy first requested that they don't go down that street anymore. That in Hamilton because of the safety concerns. In May of 2018, I went back and saw in one of Bugsy's monthly reports that they had graded both streets.
That our highway guys had graded the streets, or that the residents had graded the streets?
Our guys, the highway department graded the street.
Well, see, this is tricky. This is really tricky.
So shortly after that, one of the residents on Hamilton came in and put down a whole bunch of fill. I remember him relating that to you, Dave. So residents are somewhat aware that they are somewhat responsible for the roads.
And well, then would it also be helpful to see what their deeds say?
So before we get into this, we're supposed to be budget here, Michelle.
Well, I'm just
They
thinking
only
about
brought it
money. If we have to set aside money to deal with
But
that.
we don't have
That's a lot.
$2,000.
$1 million.
that's for sure.
We ain't gonna do that.
Wait, can you say that again, Dave?
We don't have that kind of money, even if it turns out that way. That road's a private road, and if it wasn't so, they would have changed it a long time ago.
Okay, so not in the budget for this year, but that's the only reason I brought it up was to see if we needed to allocate.
And we need to look into it again. There's like that. There's like Depot Square. If you want to have fun, go down there and figure that one out. Like that's another handshake deal or some kind of deal. That's a private road where they give us access to it, but we go through there and
We plow it, we
traffic.
pick up garbage.
Yeah.
I'm just so surprised that it has taken all of this time, there has been stasis for all of these years, and
It's not clear that there has been stasis. If I read the letter fails to mention that there was a water main break that the residents repaired.
got it.
Okay, so the letter and when I talked to the person who related the water main break to me, what he told me was that when he bought his property on East Belvedere, he was told by the realtor that East Belvedere was a private road, that it should not be a concern. The village picks up garbage, the village plows, but if there's a big problem, you, new resident, are going to have to pay for it. So in at least one case for the 7 properties on East Belvedere, sorry, There are 8 properties on East Belvedere, and there's a property on Marsh Avenue that abuts East Belvedere. At least one of the 8 people on East Belvedere was told when they bought the property, it's a private road.
Got it. And the letter was, one more small question, Dave, sorry. The letter was accurate or inaccurate when it identified White Hill as a private, or as a, I can't remember. It identified it as a paved private road, I thought. White Hill is a village street or not a village street?
As far as I know, it's a village street, but
It's
I
a local
agree.
road.
it was a dirt road until probably I don't know, maybe 50s or 60s.
So those 3 streets are in the same development, and somehow White Hill is a public road and the other 2 are private roads?
White Hill was developed by a guy that lived on Hamilton.
Stanley White.
Stanley White, right, the
White.
architect.
I don't know about East Belvedere, if he had anything to do with it.
Okay, onward. We obviously need more information before we can put any numbers to the 2 of any kind of project.
Other expenses that we want to talk about?
I'd like to bring up the new issues of bathrooms.
Oh, Heidi, I just sent you
Bathroom money.
I just sent you an email, Heidi,
Around,
before the meeting. I don't know if you saw it.
But I would like to see, Fran has been doing some research. I know it's not yet complete.
I only got one quote of the 3 companies that Eliza had mentioned. So I'm
Hello?
waiting for 2
Sorry,
others.
everything froze for me. Sorry about that.
I'm sorry?
My connection was lost. So if anyone said anything, I didn't hear it.
I said I basically only got one quote of the 3 companies that Eliza had mentioned. I've been in touch with all 3 of them. The other 2 have promised to send me quotes. I mean, the numbers Eliza came up with are pretty much in line. I guess it's just a case of, whether or not the village residents are comfortable with footing this bill. So I, among other things, so I don't know where we stand in terms of putting anything on the budget right now. We're going to hold off.
The number hasn't been modified. And somebody raised a request, maybe it was Heidi, raised a request last time for a $5,000 boost. But that has not happened, right?
I have not made any restroom changes yet.
Keep in
Except
mind that
supplies.
the request from the chamber is for, is it 5 or 6 hours a day, Fran?
One company quoted me 6 hours. I believe they said 5 hours a day.
Okay. So the request from the chamber was from approximately 11 o'clock in the morning to approximately 4 or 5 in the afternoon. We know that hikers start arriving at about 8 o'clock in the morning and continue throughout the day. So although the chamber is focused on when shopping begins on Main Street, the use of the restroom begins earlier than that. In addition, the use of the restroom continues Mondays through Thursdays, or Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. I think the chamber request was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So
we're focused on the most intense usage.
Yeah.
no, they're focused on that usage, which affects the customers of the retail establishments on Main Street. If we do this, we're signing up for lifetime dancing lessons. This is not just an increase to this year's budget, it would be an increase to every single following year's budget. And it's not an insignificant amount of money. I just don't see that we have the funds to do that. If I would look at what should we do, E-code or restrooms, it's easy.
It's a fair point, Marie. It's a fair point.
But I think the idea is just to try and get something rather than nothing. And, we don't have to do it all at once and say we're going to do 7 days a week or nothing at all. But, if it is something that residents want, and it is, it's their taxpayer dollars, then I think we should consider it, even if it's not 7 days a week.
I think that's where we need to go next, is ask the residents what they want. I mean, we've heard from the letter I saw from Heidi, not from Heidi, I'm sorry, Heidi. The letter I saw from Eliza was signed by 15 organizations who aren't really the residents walking up and down the streets. And it was, I'm curious to why the school and the library and those organizations have signed, but that's neither here nor there right now. So I think our next step is to
their
Like
patrons
what the residents really want.
use Main Street is presumably the idea that the organizations that signed, it's, you know, kids who go to school, kids who use the library,
But
or
not,
or whoever else.
Well, the Chapel Restoration is an example. The Chapel Restoration has their own restrooms. Their patrons use their restrooms.
Right.
I don't
But-
know why the Chapel Restoration would be lobbying for keeping the restrooms open.
Maybe overall quality of life, and not, you know, like someone, I think it was Heather Smith or whoever said they don't want, you know, bottles of pee on their yard. I just think if it's something residents want, it's worth considering putting it in the budget on every year.
yeah, I think that's the question. We need to know what the residents want.
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple of things. First, you know, what the residents want and how we find that out. So I suggest that if we are going to do a survey for the police reform, and we do go door to door with that, we can include a survey for the bathrooms, asking residents what they want. A couple of things I think the residents should know. I mean, you're saying, I hear we're doing nothing, but until COVID happened, we clean the bathrooms 3 times a week. We clean them on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and restock all of the toilet paper, which we use about a case of, I think, a week, I think Bugsy said. And we do that. So some of the information that's going out, like a recent petition, which I believe Liza Starbuck penned, is really misleading, that the village is doing nothing and denying people the use of it. We open the bathrooms every day. Once the weather gets good, they have to be weatherized. So once the weather gets good, we open them up, which is usually April. And the police go down and they open them up at the beginning of their shift. I think it's like 8 o'clock or around 8 o'clock in the morning. And they also lock them at night. I'm not sure. I think that changes as the time changes and when it gets dark. And like I said, we clean them 3 times a week. So it's not like we're denying anybody anything. It seems like we want a new standard here now. And, you know, I think we need to go to the public. And I think the reason why residents are important is because residents are paying the bills. They're the ones that are paying the taxes, which are paying for all the infrastructure and everything that happens in the village. I don't go tell Nelsonville what they should be doing, or I shouldn't be influencing them, because it's their budget and they're the people that are paying the taxes, is my feeling.
So it sounds like
I will-
there's a conflating of COVID time with time previous, and the effort that has been made at the village's expense up until COVID. And it sounds like it's important to separate the issue of standard bathroom maintenance versus the emergency measures that were taken during COVID, and establishing forward motion
Yeah, I mean,
for
COVID's
now.
not
I mean, we
gonna-
have to have a plan for this summer, right? Because we're still in COVID, but that should not necessarily be a model for standard maintenance going forward.
No, but I
And
think
also, do we also have a sense yet of what the governor, I haven't seen any orders on sanitizing since last summer. Maybe the need isn't as intense as it was last summer. Maybe that's a health department question. I'd be happy to find out what the standing guidance is now. It's got to be different than last summer.
let me chime in. I just think that what we've learned in the last year during COVID, you know, we don't just relate it to the bathrooms. It's how we conduct meetings. It's how we conduct business. And it's going to become part of the new way of life as we go forward. There's a heightened awareness about health and protocols to maintain safety, whether it's use of public restrooms, or it's conducting board meetings in public, letting people into Village Hall, how many people you let into your business. I think all these things we need to take into consideration, because these are lessons that I think as a society we've learned, and we'll build off of that as we go forward. I don't ever see us returning to
Normal.
it's a new normal. And I think this is all has to be taken into consideration as we move forward.
Well,
The
I'm
cleaning,
happy.
the bathrooms and everything else is just something that will become part of the way of life.
I'm happy to reach out to Sean Rogan, who was very proactive in getting in touch with us after we asked questions about outdoor gatherings. I'm happy to ask him what the guidance is, and maybe that will give us a better sense of what is needed. I mean, it seems to me that the times that we do, although it is a luxury to have the bathrooms open during the week, the times when they're most needed is during the heavy traffic time. But maybe the intensity of attention under current guidance is different than it was last summer. I don't know.
I'm good with holding off if we can put together a survey and ask the residents what their thoughts are on it. That will give us some more guidance as to which way we might think of wanting to go with this, and that shouldn't take that long. I think we should be able to do something that we can get together before we have to close up this budget, hopefully.
I support that idea.
I'm
Yeah,
fine
I mean,
with that.
yeah. I mean, Fran, we're aiming to get the other survey out starting next week. So the timeline, we've
Right.
got with the date, the last week of April is when the budget is finalized, right?
It's got to be adopted before May 1st. So to go with scheduled meetings, I have adoption scheduled for April 27th.
So it's reasonable then to take, I think it was Heidi originally suggested a survey. It sounds like Dave's in support of it and Fran's in support of it.
So right now, I had thought that we would have a public hearing on April 13th. So if there are going to be any, significant changes that the board itself is proposing, they should be in there, because we can make any changes we want after April 13th. But the thought is that you're really only going to be making changes dependent on the public's input after that meeting, or things that, really came up last minute and they need to be adjusted. But April 13th should be a pretty solid, ready for adoption. In the past, I have not made changes after the public hearing. There was never any comments that needed to be addressed in a monetary sense. So just to keep that in mind, I don't want to be scrambling to make too many changes. But if there's one or two, we could handle that if we had to.
Michelle, can I ask a question? I know I'm just jumping off of that. From what I'm reading on this, we're pulling an additional like $88,000 out of the fund balance.
Mhm.
And you're saying that the fund balance then at the end of the, once we finish this, will be 750,000.
Mhm.
I thought we needed to, what was the percentage that we should have? Because that's like below 30%.
20 to 25. 25 should be, it's not a minimum from the state, but it's a question on one of the state's, surveys. Is your fund balance over or under 25%?
25% of what again?
Of the
It
budget.
looks
Overall
at it,
budget.
so it's a twofold question. 25% of the general fund, and then all funds, like the 3 funds, and then the 3 fund balances put together.
But it's a
Okay, so-
percentage of the budget amount?
Yes.
Okay. And Fran said the 750, that was for fiscal year 2021. I thought you said
No,
fiscal year
21.
2021-22 was 700.
It's between 750, depending on where we end this year.
Okay,
But it's going to be a minimum of 700.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
thank you.
And then once I have some better numbers, I can send out my estimated sheet here on how I came up with those fund balance numbers. They show, the changes in all the audited numbers, and then my assumptions, and then where we would be. Any other general fund topics to bring up?
I have none others.
Okay. So I'm gonna go over some of the things we talked about, see if any changes need to be made at this time. The next meeting, I'll have water and sewer budgets. They're almost done. And if the board would be okay, I'd like to just run over a couple verbal big water and sewer items. I didn't send anything in advance, but just a couple items for discussion. Is that okay to move to
Fine.
water?
Go ahead. Sure.
Yes, yep.
So in this current fiscal year, we had the purchase of a new truck for water and sewer to be split. Their last vehicles in '03, and it's seen better days. Between the bid process and getting the specs and everything, it's not going to happen before May 31st. So I'm just going to roll that payment over. It's split between the two funds, and that is going to be paid out of regular budget, not out of fund balance.
Okay.
So, I would have needed the budget there anyway, because we would have assumed a 3-year payment schedule. So now we're just pushing the payment schedule off by a year. There are talks, very preliminary talks, that we need to change the endpoints. This is going to be a rather significant cost. So that's something that, we have to figure out what it entails, when it has to be done by. But I think the hardware itself, we're looking at, $39,000-$40,000.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I don't understand. Can you, when you say we have to change the endpoints?
So I believe it was in one of Matt's monthly reports recently that, so the village upgraded water meters a couple years ago, and there's an endpoint which allows the automated reading. It sends like a ping to the software.
Right, I remember now. Okay.
So that device is called an endpoint, and that technology is based on 3G, and it needs to be updated, I think, to LTE or 5G, something, whatever it is, the technology is going to be obsolete when they get rid of 3G cell towers in the area. That's what Badger is saying. So instead, they're not quoting us as if we're purchasing brand new endpoints. They're quoting us an upgrade cost to switch them all out at $45 an endpoint. So it's not clear exactly who would be doing that work. If it can be handled in-house, if we have to get a contractor, split it. It's a lot of questions for Matt that are still pending, but it is a large unexpected expense that I have to try and find to put into the budget for next year.
And I thought the end point for the endpoints was year end. I thought that's when they would no longer be supported. So it would be an expense that would incur in the first half of the next fiscal year. And it's not all endpoints. The newer endpoints have the correct and supported technology. It's the older endpoints that have the older technology.
Which is the majority of them.
Yeah, 80%.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we just did this work.
So I thought that too. I looked it up. It was in 2016 that we purchased all of this stuff.
A long time, yeah.
So that's a big unexpected cost. But on the flip side, the good news, so I talked to our financial advisor today, Noah of Munistat. He assists us with all our bans and bonds. So every year the village renews a bond anticipation note for water and sewer projects. We pay down some principal, we pay some interest, we take it out again. It's just a loan every 12 months. So last year, we do this in May, we got really lucky and got a 1.44% interest rate in the market, with an unknown market with the pandemic, and interest rates have dropped even more. So we're going to have even more savings. So he doesn't know what they're going to be exactly yet, but he doesn't think they're going to be over 1.5 at all. So I'm going to put a conservative number in there, but that's some savings, because usually I estimate at least a 2.5%, 3%, because in the past they were at 2.5, 2.7, and they've just been coming down year after year. But who knows what's going to happen? It's a market rate in the next 6 weeks. So so that's some savings there on both the water and sewer side. The water has a bigger ban, so I can use some of the interest savings to offset the big project. But I don't think we'll have to dip into fund balance for that project, but we might have to for some engineering if we wanted to do, for Chazen and things like that. And that's typically what we have done in the past. We paid for the tectonic studies for the dams out of fund balance. We've budgeted if we needed to have more dam engineering to come out of fund balance. with the thinking that, you know, the preliminary phases be paid out of fund balance. And then when we get to a project that the village wants to do, then we would ban or bond for
Right.
the large amount of money.
Right.
So it's not like it's a change in the methodology of doing the water budget. It's just what's being used for fund balance versus, you know, regular budget expenses. So those are just some 3 large topics of those funds. Otherwise, those funds are pretty self-sufficient. They balance really well. I've been lowering the amount of fund balance that we need to cover some of the large projects in the water and sewer funds. So that fund balance is growing in water and sewer. When I first started, they were really small. So now they're healthy amounts too, so that, you know, if we do go through with some of these projects and we have to invest, you know, 50, 75,000, you know, to get some engineering, I'm just throwing out numbers. I don't know what it really costs. We can do that. We don't have to go find financing, you know, to do engineering. Not that I want to spend all that at once, but there's money there, a little flexibility to gear up to figure out what kind of project we need to do for the water side.
Michelle, I think we raised the water rates a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
Should we consider raising the sewer rates?
I don't see the need right now. I'm not short on the budget.
Okay,
The year in which we raised it was because we were converting one of our EFC to bonds, our EFC short-term financing to bond. So that added a huge $30,000 payment a year that we didn't have in the budget previously. So we had to fill some of that shortfall. And that's why we raised rates. Right now, we don't have a shortfall for regular expenses. Like that bond payment is reoccurring year after year for 20 years. If we have to use fund balance a little bit for these one-off projects, it's not a reoccurring expense. So at this point, I don't see the need to raise rates because the fund is self-sustaining,
okay.
both of them. Okay. Do we want to schedule a next meeting to go over, you know, to finish some general fund discussions and to go over some water and sewer in detail?
I thought we had a budget meeting scheduled for next week. Jeff, do you remember?
I don't
Right now
remember.
it's-
I don't have the schedule in front of me.
Right.
I had one for the 23rd, but we decided to do it tonight, but we could still talk about more stuff on the 23rd. April 6th would be the last time that I want to really have a large discussion about, you know, I want everything to be mostly final by April 6th so that we can have the public hearing. So I don't know.
Could we do water and sewer next Tuesday?
So we need to, but it doesn't have to be next Tuesday, but at some point we just need to make sure right now we have the draft plan and the ratification on 3 times, the 23rd, the 25th, and the 30th, but we're not seeing a ton of changes. So something in there can shift out budget.
I would think that, you know, if the next meeting, I would like to focus mostly on water and sewer, but I would like, you know, if we can, to resolve some other general fund issues, you know, thoughts. So I don't know if Tuesday's enough time. So we could do the 25th or the 30th, and then that still leaves the 6th if we really need some large discussions.
Okay, so the 25th?
Is that okay?
The 30th.
I mean, I won't be at the 25th, but that's okay.
The 25th was code update and final review for the police if we need it.
But we
I think
can
it was a
knock
code
that out.
update.
We can knock that out on the 23rd.
I think we had code update scheduled for that night, Marie.
Right, and that's a night that Heidi, if we need all 5 of us for budget discussion, it shouldn't be the 25th. Because Heidi can't make it that
I
night.
think as long as we have a quorum, we're good,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
good with the 30th for budget.
30th? Okay.
Anybody else?
I thought I had asked for code update that night.
Yep.
I'm
Maria
sorry,
has the code update
you
on the
did.
30th.
Okay, sorry.
So, but didn't we just say we're doing code update on the 25th?
We got a whole bunch.
Yes, we need to do a lot of code update.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we got code. I'm sorry, we do have code. I'm looking at 2 different calendars.
So do you want to switch those dates? We'll do the code update on the 25th.
We've got it there too.
30th isn't cutting it too short, Michelle?
No, because we still have the 6th for changes. I don't
Okay.
anticipate the next meeting being very long. We could go through line by line on water and sewer, but I'd like to just, go through, how it works, revenues, expenses, some of the large projects Matt wants to accomplish. But I don't foresee it being a super lengthy 3-hour discussion like the general fund is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm confused, which is not an unusual state. The 25th is code
Oh,
update.
okay.
Yes.
Code.
The 30th is,
Budget, which will be water and sewer, and also trying to finalize, or if we have questions on general. Right, Michelle?
so that gives us only one code update meeting for the remainder of March.
What do we have on the 20th? Or not the 20th?
Saturday night.
Wrong month. 23rd, what do we have?
It's ratification of the police plan, but that doesn't need to take 2
Yeah, it
hours.
shouldn't take too long.
Todd's Park's on there too.
Oh, Top Park too.
Todd's Park, that, there's a couple things I started putting the agenda together today. There's a resignation, in the police department, Larry informed me about today. Reese
Oh, crap.
is leaving.
There was the what?
Reese, tendered his resignation.
One of the
Oh.
young officers.
That's
Yeah.
not nice.
I think he probably got a full-time.
Yes, he's going to Dutchess
Somewhere.
County Sheriff.
That leaves us in a
Full-time.
terrible position.
That's 10. We're down to 10.
Oh, minus 2 who are
Oh,
on
2 who are
medical
out.
leave.
Right, that leaves us 8.
8
Larry's gotta
officers.
I'll talk to Larry tomorrow. We gotta reach out. We gotta recruit.
Yeah, he had somebody he thought was really good and then she never came back.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
how
so
about
the-
on the 30th, if I promise to have my budget stuff done in 45 minutes, then Marie can have her code update after? Can we do that?
Do you
Yeah,
promise?
that works.
Yeah,
On a
I'm gonna
Friday or
hold you to it.
That's
will.
okay. I'll stop mid-sentence so that you
Guess
guys
what,
can.
Marie? You don't scare Michelle. Not a bit.
Okay, so the 23rd, we have Tots Park and we have the police, right?
I'll send out the agenda in the
Police
morning.
final?
I started working on it this afternoon, Tuesday's agenda. One thing we will do Tuesday is set the date for the public hearing for the budget.
Okay,
And do we have planning board information back from STR? Is that on the horizon?
Supposed to have it to me at end of day today.
Oh, okay. So
still
not
got
yet.
4 hours.
Yep. I sent him a reminder yesterday.
So okay, so you're gonna send the list with timing and everything, right, Jeff?
Yeah,
Okay, sounds good. I am
What else?
Done.
Anything else?
I think I'm good on the budget side here.
No,
Okay.
I don't have anything
I'm
else.
sorry, Michelle, did the Myers purchase go through yet?
The Myers purchase?
yes.
Because I didn't see it in sales of real property.
What are we talking about?
So those numbers, I think the check was deposited in February, and those numbers are only through January.
Gotcha.
What are we talking about?
Sale of village-owned property for roughly $20,000. The
Where?
revenue wasn't recorded yet, but it
On
was.
the corner of Healy Road and Healy
Oh,
and.
outside of the village.
Yeah, there was one parcel that was in Nelsonville, one that's in Phillipstown,
Got it.
up on Moffett Road.
Going back to water, right? It's related to water.
That one
We had
time.
those parcels or something?
Yes, we had them because of the
We would
dam, right?
need it, and
Dam.
Greg
No,
said-
aqueduct access.
Aqueduct,
from
I'm
years-
sorry, aqueduct.
From years ago.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second.
All in favor?
Bye.
Thank you.
Michelle,
everyone.
thank you so much.
Yes, thank
Jeff,
you.
thank you.
Always, Michelle, thank you.
Send
Thank you.
emails if you guys think of questions, even if they're small, one here, one there. I'm open for thoughts.
And you'll
Thank
be sending us the water and sewer, or have you?
Yes, over the weekend, you'll have
Okay,
it.
thanks.
Yep.
Okay.
Take care, thank you. Good night, all.
Bye.
Right.
Bye.